Okay, I wanted to explain a little bit about the diary assignments that you'll have for week 4 and week 5 in this class. And so I am right now with what you're seeing on the content page under week 4, looking at the little discussion module. So you can see the first thing there would be the folder, the discussion folder. So you could click on that and it gives you all the instructions. But the big thing here I want to show you is this folder right here that gives you a list of almost 40 links to diaries. So let's click on that. And you can see there that they start in 1900 and they go, don't sleep on the load more button. They go all the way up into the 1920s. And the last one is in 1929. So they span the 3 decades that you're concerned with during week 4. So the majority of these diaries, to be really honest, are written by women. It seems that that's just the nature in history of diary keeping, that very personal, recording the small daily minutia of life kind of stuff was more often written by women. Whereas if men were writing diaries, it was more that they were creating their papers, or perhaps that they would one day have become a manuscript or something. So it was just a lot easier for me as I was poking around the web trying to find all these to find slightly more that were written by women. But there are both in here. So the thing you need to do first is just click through and take a look at some of these. And maybe you're sort of like, I want to read something from World War I. So you would choose something in these years. Maybe you're thinking, no, I want to read something from the 20s and as we're heading towards the Great Depression. So you choose something from there. So don't just click on the very first one, because it's actually much more interesting if everyone in the class kind of spreads out. And, I don't want to assign you one because I want you to have some choice in this. But if everyone just does George Wellington 1900, it's a big yawn really quickly in the discussion, right? So let's say I'm like, oh, I want to read something from the 1920s. So maybe I click on Mary Jean Simpson, 1926. And it takes me, I can see here, to the University of Vermont site where they have some digital collections. And as you look down, you can see they literally have scanned her original diary. And if you go, into it a little bit, you get to the point where you can see her handwriting on the page and read the actual entries that way. The truth of the matter is, cursive is not taught in the schools anymore, right? So I'm assuming a whole lot of you don't really read or write cursive. Outside of that, even if you do, reading an individual's handwriting in cursive is always a little bit of a challenge. So all of the diaries that you have as a choice for this week have some sort of transcript option. So once you've chosen a diary, you've gone to the website, you got to look around for where's the transcript. In the case of the University of Vermont diaries that I'm giving to you, they have right here, you got choices. I would just download the docx file and just read it that way. It's a typed transcript of everything, okay? But let's say you went to a different, let's see, who do we want to do here? Let's choose, let's see, Delasiers. What are you? From 1912. So what this one is, also you can see the scanned actual diary. This is from the American Diary Project. And so you can jump to transcript text, but also it's not too far down here. Transcription, click to view or hide. So right here you can see we have typed transcription of all of her entries. Okay, so choose a diary, find the transcript for it, and then spend a little time reading it. I have an example here for you, which is the diary of someone named Chester Way, and he was a student at the University of Vermont, and this diary is from 1919. With your choices of diaries, by the way, I think there's another one from him from, I don't know, like 1917, 18, something like that. But this one is not linked on there, just so I can give it to you as an example. So when you have your diary, spend a little time reading it. I will show you how I'm trying to figure out where are the pop culture moments. So where am I seeing him have recreation, have leisure time, do social things, maybe spend a little money for, his entertainment. So, it can be games, it can be sports, it can be slang, it can be movies, it can be best-selling books. Can't remember if I said books, sorry. So you're looking for sort of that mass culture kind of stuff. And so I'm just going to be reading the entries and trying to pick out little moments ooh, could this be the pop culture moment from this diary that I'm going to explain in my discussion both to the class? So let's just look at the first entry right here. Wednesday, January 1st, 1919. Thaw. Stuck around the house until 10 o'clock. Then went over to the frat. Right there, I'm like, oh, Chester's a fraternity boy. I could look at Greek life in 1919. Perhaps even specifically at the University of Vermont if I want. But I could just look in the United States. What was going on with sororities and fraternities? Like how many students joined? You had to have time. It was a social thing. You had to have some money. The Greek life could be very interesting to examine during that era. Finished moving our stuff in. Dick Holdstock was there, saw Bert Corey a few minutes, called Edlins up in Morn. Wall called me up at noon and we planned to go skiing. Another moment where I'm like, okay, so college students were going skiing. So I could look into the popularity. I'm guessing it's downhill probably. They're in Vermont. It could be Nordic, who knows? So I could look into like how popular was skiing as a pastime in that year. We're right after World War I finished. So that's interesting. What kind of equipment did they use? How much did stuff cost? I'm very curious. Just as we were about to start, Bob Platka came up and joined us. We had one dandy time. We have a use of slang right there, dandy. I could say that's going to be my pop culture thing I write about to the class. I'm going to look into the history, the etymology of dandy. Like, were a lot of people using this word? Where did it come from? Why this word? So we had a dandy time, though it was raining a little and awful sticky. We hiked or pushed out to Sandy Hill in Holt's Woods. While there, we tried the hill a few times and then came home and to Madge's second show. Now that stops me right there because I know that in the 1900s, quite a few movie theaters and even like perhaps like stage production theaters were called the Majestic. Since he went to the second show, I'm thinking it's the second show of a movie. I also am like, in 1990, we weren't in the era of the talkies yet, right? We were still in silent films. So it could be really interesting to look at. Maybe I could even find something that tells me, an old newspaper, for example, that tells me what movies were playing in Burlington, Vermont in 1919. But I also could just look in general at what was going on with movies in the United States in 1919. In that year, what were the big hits? What potentially might Chester have gone to see that day? Because it was out in January of 1919. I could probably sleuth it out. Visited with Wall on the way home. Peachy time. Peachy is also slang. So why this word? How was it used? How many people used it? Where did it come from? This whole kind of thing. So from the first entry alone, I've got 4 or 5 good options for my discussion post. So in my discussion post, I would write about like, who is Chester? Like from the little website I went to, what could I figure out about this guy? And then like I would explain to my classmates, assuming they hadn't looked at this diary, kind of like, what the year was, what was going on. And then also I would kind of maybe go through some of these things and say, hey, in the first entry in the diary, I found like these 4 or 5 pop culture references. But I decided to focus in on looking at the Majestic Theater and movies during that time. So here's what I can tell you I found out about movies in 1919 in the United States. As I am doing my research, I would be careful to cite all sources in my discussion post, not use AI at all, because I love the environment. I love our planet. I am a person who has some ethics and morals when it comes to academics. I'm in college because I want to learn things and develop skills. So I'm not going to my friend Chad at all for this. No. Oh, no. And especially not for the research, because all of the internet's out there that is not AI, and I can find my own sources with valid information. So staying away from everything AI, I might do a little research and then cite my sources in writing up my discussion post. I would like to stress, by the way, one more time, I would rather have you bring messy, terribly punctuated, not great grammar, real writing to this class than the flat, polished, fake stuff from AI. It's killing me. Please don't. Okay, so I would kind of go through like, here's what I'm seeing in Chester's life with the pop culture. And then I would focus in on one moment of pop culture. And I would explain it to the class and I would cite my sources. And then I would have done a great discussion post for this week. Next week, you'll do the same thing with the decades of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So there are different diaries to look at, but same kind of thing. Choose a diary, find the transcript, read the diary over. I have to tell you, I wouldn't stop reading this diary after the first entry. I would be a little bit like, okay, he uses dandy and peachy as slang. Does that language crop up a lot? Is that something does he use those words a lot? Is there other slang I can identify? Maybe I can find a different pop culture reference. Because look we got a lot of his life to learn about. And he mentions, for example, the frat a lot. So maybe I want to learn more about his Greek life stuff if I'm going to explain that in my discussion post. So I would actually spend some time with the diary. And even if you want to go through and highlight to help yourself and decide finally okay, I've really looked at this guy's life during that year. I'll be able to explain kind of what was going on in pop culture for this dude in 1919 to my classmates, but I'm going to really highlight this one pop culture moment or artifact in my discussion post. And so I feel like I've scanned his life fully during this year, and I am ready to be kind of an authority on this diary. So that's kind of what you're aiming for with this assignment. If you really lean into it, it can be super interesting. You actually get to look at primary sources written at the time by a real non-famous human being, just their daily little minutia. And you get to try and see how the ideas in this class show up in a primary source. And if that's not a good time in the world of academia, I don't know what is.